and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Gambala is absent. Ms. Kroll?
Present.
Mr. Setlak?
Here?
Ms. Sims-Smirchek?
Here.
And Mr. Kmetz is absent. And also Craig Phillips, Town Manager, and Wayne Pondinas, Town Council, are present. You
Okay,
have 3 members present, which is enough for a quorum.
yes, so we will proceed. I will entertain a motion for the approval of minutes if everyone's had a chance to look at them and review them. No questions? I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Also move.
Any second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 No opposed. All right, new business. We have before us on our agenda the funding for the utility relocation project along the east side of US 41. And I believe there is a point of discussion prior to this motion.
Yeah, it's kind of continuation from other stuff. And just to confirm, nothing's really started on this yet. In other words, you haven't.
Not at the moment.
Okay, but the base contract's been awarded. Is that
Why don't you
right?
guys come up to the mic, just so we get everything on record?
Yes, and before we proceed, I'd like to state that we have 2 gentlemen from Haas and Associates here. Tom Weinman and Matt Minial are here to answer all of our questions. So thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, but you haven't gotten a notice to proceed yet. I talked a little bit before, but things are not still ready to go.
No, we have not issued the notice to proceed. We were holding off on that because of the utility relocation delays, so that we wouldn't have to create a time extension for that.
Okay.
So we're still a couple weeks out with Comcast and AT&T to get their work off those top poles that are out there.
Okay, and on the change order number 1, that's down, knocked down 30,000 from when it started.
Correct, yeah. From the original cost, there was a reduction in change order cost from $59,000 on the bypass pumping to $29,000, which gave us a $30,000 savings on the original cost that was provided to us. The total
Okay.
cost for the change order now, in addition to the original contract price, is $29,852. The original contract bid price awarded was for $333,699. The revised change order cost included in with this brings the new contract total to $363,551.
Okay.
And that was signed and agreed to by Grimmer Construction on 9/4/2020.
And I saw one thing in the attachment you emailed. There was a matter of 10 days. Is this extending the time frame for the contract 10 days?
Yes, there was an additional 10 days added to the contract.
Okay, the initial was 60?
The
I
initial
believe?
was 60, yeah, so that would bring the total contract days to 70.
70 is, okay.
70 total.
Okay. And then, what else was there on that? Oh, it's a little bit of an aside, but have you gotten anything further on the west side with that?
The force main?
Yeah,
We actually had a conference call today with NDOT and Lochner and Parsons. Parsons is the utility coordinator hired through NDOT. Lochner is the construction engineer for the project for US 41. And we went through the cross sections with Parsons today and tried to work through to see if we could get those adjusted. And we were only able to gain about 1.5 to 2 feet of cover, and you have to have 4 feet. So with the narrowness of the right-of-way and the existing conditions of the ground, it just would not allow for it. So we are going to have to lower that, relocate that section of main. We do have a revised plan. We had a little bit of a utility conflict with the existing stuff in the ground that we had to work around, so we're going to have to do a little bit of a jog in lowering it. I think we're working on finalizing that. We're very close, and then we have to revise the total cost of that estimate, and I'm not 100% sure what that cost dollar is at this point.
would I assume it's up?
No, I think we're gonna go down. I think it's going down.
Okay.
Initially, it was 80,000. I
Yeah.
think we're less than that now. The last estimate, I believe it was, don't quote me, I think it was around 50 or 60, but I believe we're somewhere in that vicinity.
Okay. And then there was some discussion before about whether this would be a separate action, not connected with this particular contract. Is that,
That's a good question. So, when we talked about this before, there was some question as to whether or not the changes with regard to the force main would have to be taken up as a separate action or a separate contract. And I believe you guys have looked into it, if I'm not mistaken. And the issues related to the lowering of the force main would be considered unexpected circumstances, or what I think what the right term is there. But perhaps that would be allowed to go above the 20% threshold for this project, because those were unexpected changes as opposed to known changes that we had to deal with. Is that correct, or I had gotten that
Tim was
information
willing
from-
to, yes, he was willing to look at that as an unforeseen condition with respect to the east side and NIPSCO coming in, putting in their gas. We didn't expect that. We wouldn't have thought that they were going to put their power poles in prior to
Oh, so
us
it's
putting
the
in that case.
east-
So some of that stuff could have been
It's
also.
the east side we can unforeseen.
Yes, so he was willing to say that, and this is when we were talking about it being 60, he was saying that was unforeseen. And so like this other work that we're throwing on there could possibly be put onto that project.
As well? Okay.
Yeah, so I could talk with him again about that and revisit that and just see what he's comfortable with is saying it was unforeseen and what should have been foreseen.
Okay, because that was the last conversation I had
Yes.
had with Tim Haas.
But like I say, I believe that was mostly with regards to the east side.
Okay.
Yeah. And now, with respect to the work on the west side of the road, if we decide we can all agree to add it to the contract, then it would become the second change order. If not, with it being under 150,000, we could quote that, so we could pick who you wanted to solicit quotes from on that as well and take that avenue.
okay, so that's still,
Up in the air.
Kind of a little up in the air, I
Right.
guess, yes,
yeah, okay.
as to how the board would like to handle that, I guess.
Yeah, well, I'd like it to be reduced about 79.9.
I wish we had an easy button like Staples.
I know. I mean, it's just a pen. You just mark it in. Anyway, okay. I thank you for that. Very much appreciate that. And we can go
Okay,
on.
I just have one question. With respect to all these change orders, unforeseen circumstances, what do you anticipate, can't hold your feet to the fire, for the completion date, especially since we're coming, 70 days out is going to give us inclement weather? What do you guys guesstimate? Won't hold you to it, but just so we know.
In a perfect world, if Comcast and AT&T get their work done in 2 to 3 weeks, which we were told today, at that point, they would have to energize their stuff. They're taking it underground to the new poles that are on the right-of-way now there where the Culvers is built. Once they did that, we would still probably have another, I'd say, week if NIPSCO is right on top of backing up, getting it out of there now, getting their stuff off the poles, and then NIPSCO pulling those poles. Now, Grimmer has agreed to take those poles out while we're doing construction if they haven't done it, and just set them on the ground, and NIPSCO told me they would come and pick them up. So we just have to get their lines off of the poles ultimately. So if that all goes as planned, 2 to 3 weeks, I would say we could start immediately following that, as long as those lines were retired, so maybe a month. And
Okay.
so then if that's today's what's today's date, 15th, so September, October.
Realistically.
So realistically, yeah, hope by the end of the year. Now, the upside to that, even though the weather's getting cold, we're just digging underground, and so that work can still be done. Production might be slowed down, but Grimmer has been good to work with us through all this. They haven't asked for any additional monies for the delays. They've been good to work with us on that, so I don't see any problem with that. And we're not doing any surface paving. The areas where we're crossing on the 2 roads that go into the Target, there's those little pork chop medians. We're going to cut through those, and we're just going to patch them back with binder because NDOT's coming back, and they're going to tear it out.
Okay.
And so there's no sense to putting the concrete back in at this point.
Okay.
So I don't see a problem with finishing it as long as the utilities get their work done in front of us. And so we're on top of monitoring that. I check with them every week on that, the Monday and Friday. And like I said, we had a meeting today and got a timeline of like 2 to 3 weeks for them to get that underground over to the new lines, the new poles.
And we were notified, if I'm not mistaken, that NDOT doesn't intend to come back and do their portion of the remainder of that work until next year at this
Yes,
point?
correct.
So
Correct.
we're not holding anything up
Yes.
based
Right.
on this timeline?
Yeah, initially, we were on a deadline to get done because thought they were going to start the work this fall. And then just with the utility delays, which we found out weren't delays because the NIPSCO stuff got moved before us, you know, they got done before us, so, and now we're just waiting for that stuff to be moved.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Not a problem.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for these gentlemen? All righty. You are free to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So with no other discussion, I will entertain a motion. However, with this motion, I'd like to make a footnote to it, reference to the funding for this utility project for $363,551. Would like to make a footnote to have our town attorney look into the actions of NIPSCO to make sure that no extra financial costs were placed upon the town relative to their actions and their failure to coordinate with Haas Engineering. So that being said, I will entertain such motion.
Oh, I'll go along with that. I'm not going to repeat it, but yes.
Okay, don't ask me to repeat it. Okay, any second?
I'll second the motion.
All righty, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. All right, any reports and correspondence?
Just one item. As I mentioned during the previous meeting to the Waterworks Board, I've asked for permission to advertise the SCADA system. A portion of that project does involve the Sanitary Board, since basically half of the cost, we anticipate half the cost of that project coming hopefully from the Waterworks wastewater utility. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys are aware of what we anticipate there. So we've asked for approval to advertise the bids for hopeful receipt of bids, if all goes well, by the November meeting of the Waterworks Board, and then we would need approval of the expenditure from both the Sanitary Board and the Waterworks Board at that point to move forward with the award of the contract, hopefully,
Okay,
so we can get the system put in. So just a heads up to keep you aware of what's going on. More action probably needed, like I said, most likely at the November meeting.
okay. I just have one quick question. Who is going to be the point person on this project?
The point person for the SCADA system project, I guess it would be, well, for the purpose of the board, me, and keeping track of where we're at with the bid process and all that sort of thing. So
Okay.
they're going to be working pretty closely also with Bob Valois and with Jason, since it's a computer-related,
Okay.
mainly a computer-related system.
All
So
righty.
Has there been any analysis or study made of exactly what's needed? You're going out for a bid.
there is.
SCADA is an acronym.
There is a proposal that's going to be put before the council. We just received that, so I'm gonna, if I can get it on the agenda for this next meeting, to do an assessment of the water system. That's being put before the council hopefully at this next meeting.
Just an assessment of the water system or sanitary as well?
Right now, as far as I know, that's just the water system. I don't know if-
I think they assessed everything.
They did assess everything in order to put this bid together,
They-
so they
we-
know what we need.
Our water operator and myself went to Highland and we looked at their SCADA system. And then there was another, the company that we have now, which is proprietary. And then Austin, they looked at all our lift stations, they know our treatment plant, they know our towers, and all that information was based on what we have now. And Austin did a good job of looking at everything, so we kind of know what we want and what we need. And that might have not came up in the one meeting that we were at, but they know what we have, and Jason was part of that too.
Who is
So-
doing the bid specs?
Haas and Associates are doing the bid specs for
Okay,
us.
all
Ken
right.
Kraus, our town engineer.
Okay,
So just to give you some background, it's based on 21 sites. It's 13 lift stations, 2 well houses, 2 treatment plants, 3 water towers, and 1 SCADA room. So that is what the bid is based on, plus the upfront work that's been done by the town staff at the Public Works Department, and the knowledge of our town engineers on that.
Do you have any performance criteria that you want it to meet? Like, what do you want it exactly to do? Or how much? Or access points, or
Jason, do you want to take a?
is there any upgradability?
It's a highly technical computer system, so I guess I would defer to you on that.
That's why I have some scariness about computer systems.
Yeah, I mean,
Going in,
that's what this is a
A lot of
computer
them
system, so.
never reach their peak, because a lot of times nobody really knows, well, I want that system. Well, what do you want it to do? Well, I want it to, work. Well, what does that mean? And I think to get a better result, if you can give a contractor as much information, I mean, you say if you want it to look like this, you show them a perspective drawing, you'll get a table with 3 legs because the 4th one isn't shown.
Well, and we're also going to be designing this so that it can be added to as needed. So the bid specs will include a per cost, or per unit additional cost as we need to add things to the system. So I do know that that's part of the overall bid package.
Okay, and accessibility?
As far as the users of the system, Jason you'd have to answer that for me better than who would have access to the system.
Is that part of the bid package, that it's accessible? I've seen some where they talk about it, people can access it via Wi-Fi.
You'd have to.
You're talking about like for Homeland Security to secure our water system, make sure it's
Well, no, this is just a matter of-
unhackable?
I think you're talking about the users.
Oh,
How can
our
it be
maintenance
accessed?
people?
Well, somebody who's out there,
access.
they're not, they're in the middle of the night, they're at home.
Mr. Valois does have a tablet with a built-in cellular card that does have remote access to the Wonderware computer that is currently at the Public Works facility. Wonderware is the name of the software company. It's what allows us to interface with the programmable logic controllers that are out at each of the individual sites.
Okay, so that will still be in use with the new stuff?
Yes,
won't change.
we've been paying the Wonderware support agreement for all these years, and that entitles us to upgrading to the current version. The version we're running at right now, I think, is 2012, because back in 2011, the old Wonderware computer started to have problems, so we replaced it. The current one is approaching 9.5 years old, and it's still running Windows 7, which has been end of life since last year. So it's definitely time to upgrade. We're going to replace the computer. We're going to put the newest version of Wonderware on top of it. Once
Is
we
that
get
included as part of this, too?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. Bob Valois and I had a conversation, and he and I are willing to sit down with the engineers from Haas and Associates, and basically we're willing to create a template of what we want each lift station, well, water tower, and treatment plant to look like. These are the inputs that we want to monitor, generator start, generator stop, generator fault, door open, door close, what the levels are. We're going to have to go to each site, verify, what manufacturer pump is in the ground at each site, show them what, the level meters or the monitoring for the levels is, which model they are and who the manufacturer is, because that'll help determine how much wiring there is, if there's a communication protocol converter that has to be added,
So this is all information that'll be going into the bid package,
yes,
correct?
yes.
Seems
I
to me-
believe Haas and Associates is supposed to propose the bid package specifications at the 23rd meeting. I believe that's what was discussed at the meeting last week.
I think so.
So,
Yeah, he's working on it.
yeah. So they're going to have a proposal, if the town council approves it at the 23rd, then Haas and Associates will have the authority to go ahead and start writing the bid specifications. Right now, they can't write any of the bid specifications because they don't have the go-ahead from the town council. So,
Okay, so
Once-
the bid specs, so without the bid specs, I don't know what would be advertised.
Nothing, we can't have, and that's why we asked for approval contingent upon the final approval of that document. So we asked for approval to advertise once those documents were finally approved and reviewed.
Okay,
and
but
then we
looking
can
at
go out
this,
to
you're talking about
advertise
some
it.
period of time before that goes out. I don't,
Right, and I spoke to Ken Kraus
till we get to the
today.
holiday season, probably.
I spoke to Ken Kraus and Jim Mauer today, and they both feel comfortable that they hopefully will be able to do that between now and the October 20th meeting. So that it will likely be advertised prior to that meeting, and then hopefully bids accepted for the November, I don't remember that date, November meeting.
I've always found, it's kind of a takeoff on that thing of, measured twice, cut once.
That's why we're taking longer. We're not trying to rush it.
Right, is make sure of what you want.
Right,
And
which
not-
is why they're
not
having a
hurry it up.
conversation That's why they're having a conversation with Bob Voice and Jason to make sure that they're clear on exactly what they need at each location.
Okay.
Okay, and I just have two questions for Jason. Number one, as part, I know this is early in the process, but the software updates, because I know those can be very costly, any software updates, is that going to be put into the bid specs, that that's included, or?
That's all included.
Okay.
The price of a new computer is going to be a part of the overall cost. The Wonderware licensing, that is something that we've already been paying for the last 8 years.
Okay.
When I started here, they let the license lapse. So we had to basically re-up, pay a small penalty, and then we've been paying that ever since. So
Okay,
the software is something we already have covered.
okay. And then the same thing, with Homeland Security, since it is, controlling potable water, is it not hackable? Are there firewalls? Are there things to safeguard the water for this community? We don't need somebody sitting over, third world country shutting off our water.
Yes, there are protection in place.
Okay, all right.
I would assume that would be part of the bid spec. That those systems being put in are,
They're already in place
yeah.
Okay.
because, like I said, Bob Valois already has remote access, and so those protections are already in place.
Figured they were, just had to ask.
Not a problem.
Okay, very good. Do you want, do we need to make a motion on the approval?
Nothing needed at this time from
For
the
the adver-
sanitary board until later, when
the
it comes time,
advertising? Okay.
once we receive the bids and once we need to review
Okay.
the costs.
Well, Jason has mentioned the SCADA system going back, 2 years ago, then a year ago, so this is not a surprise. So,
Yep.
any other reports and correspondence? Nope. Okay, moving on to the payment of bills. We have the sanitary district docket with the APVs in the amount of $13,290.03. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Also move.
Any second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. And I have the wastewater docket for the APVs for $107,721.90. I will entertain a motion for approval,
So moved.
and I will entertain a second.
Oh, I'll second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 All right, and do we have any public comment that you're
We have one.
notified of?
We have one item that was received. So this was sent to Beth Hernandez this afternoon. It says, it's from Christopher O'Hara. He is the gentleman who lives across the street from Town Hall at 10980 West 93rd Avenue. It says, Beth, I would like to submit public comments for the Sanitary District Board. I attended the board meeting in person last week. I think he meant last month. But according to the agenda, I need to submit my questions electronically. It says Sanitary District Board members. I would like to follow up on the request to fix the issue of the 10-inch stormwater drainage pipe in my backyard at 10980 West 93rd in St. John. It's caused a significant amount of erosion to my property. Each time it rains, garbage from the streets flood my property as well. I would like to improve my property, but with significant amount of stormwater draining onto my property, I'm unable to improve my property. This is a follow-up request from, from the last week's meeting. The town manager can fill in the details about this request. Thank you for assisting with this request. Chris O'Hara. He sent this I spoke to him before the meeting, and he made sure that it was submitted and then left. He sent this just to make sure that this was on the record. I've since spoken with Mr. O'Hara. I've also followed up with the town engineers. And we all realize that this is not a sanitary board issue at this point. And what's happened is I've spoken with the town engineers, and I've requested that they put together an estimate for us to do the additional survey work necessary to determine how much water is coming in, all into that point, and that what's flowing across his property. That has been put together, the draft of that has been put together by Ken Kraus and submitted to Tim Haas for his review before it comes to us. and then it'll come to me, and if it's below the threshold that I can approve, then I can approve that and just get that work going. If it's above that, I don't anticipate that, based on what I heard, it would have to go to the council for approval. And then what would happen is, that would allow Haas and Associates to put together an estimate of the actual cost of the improvements that would need to be made to fix this problem that he's having. And then that would likely have to go to the council, because that's a stormwater-related issue. That's kind of where we're at. So just for the record, that's what's happened and transpired with this since the last meeting. And like I said, he just wanted to have this as part of the record.
Okay.
And I think he intends to attend the council meeting next week to,
In the interest
share
of
this as
this,
well.
this gentleman, I know if that was on my property, I'd be mad as a March hare, all that going on. So they are moving on it, so,
we're moving as fast as we can to at least understand the problem and get an estimate of what it would cost to fix
Okay.
it.
as long as that's going forward for
Yep.
this gentleman.
Yep, and I just spoke with Ken again today, like I said.
Okay, thank you. Any other reports or public comment that we
I'm not aware of
received?
any other, unless there's anybody in the audience.
Very good. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, also move.
And second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.